Okay. So my name is Sarah Larson. I'm the outreach librarian at the Minnesota State Law Library, and today I will be presenting on free legal resources that are available online and where to find them. Obviously, when you're doing legal research, it's great if you have access to a service like Westlaw or Lexis, but that's not necessarily realistic for every firm or every situation. So what we want to do today is provide you with a brief overview of some of the resources that are out there. Currently, excuse me, my voice may get a little scratchy today. I'll do my best to keep going through that. So finding legal resources online is easier than ever. You just have to know where to look. And so we'll cover some of those sources that are available for Minnesota as well as for federal and more general research. Before we do that, I just want to remind you a little bit about the State Law Library. Chances are, since you're attending this CLE, you're already familiar a little bit with our services, but I do want to make sure to remind you that we do more than these free CLEs. As attorneys in Minnesota, you're able to borrow materials from our collection, and I'll talk about what all we have in just a minute here. We also offer reference and resource assistance. So what that means, as librarians, we're not going to be able to do your research for you. That's not what we're here for. But if you're running into a roadblock in your research and you need help to figure out either a new search term or a new place to look for information, that's something that we can absolutely help with. And if you're looking to try and track down a resource, that's also something that we're happy to help with. So feel free to contact us. We offer this service by email, by telephone, or if you happen to be in St. Paul, we're located in the Minnesota Judicial Center, and you're welcome to stop by anytime that we're open and we'll be able to assist you. And of course, as you're aware, we do offer these free CLEs. We try to offer one every month. We also have a huge library of on-demand CLEs that includes those all-important ethics and elimination of bias credits. So if you're coming up on a reporting deadline and need those, take a look at that. It's available on our website. Our collection is focused fairly heavily on Minnesota law. We are part of the Minnesota Judicial Branch. Technically, we're a department of the Supreme Court. And so our collection is built to support the research needs of the Judicial Branch. We are, of course, open to attorneys, and we're open to the public as well, and our collection reflects that. So we do provide access either in print or online to primary law for all 50 states and federal jurisdictions. Of course, we have all Minnesota resources, so Minnesota statutes, rules, court rules, all of that, we keep that. We also have Minnesota practice guides and forms. You probably can't see in the photo on the slide here, but that does include Minnesota practice, the Minnesota CLE desk books, and Lexis titles as well. We do subscribe to Minnesota CLE materials, so we have the materials that accompany each presentation. We keep those, I think we've got them going back to the 1970s or 80s in most cases. So if you need, excuse me, if you need access to those, we can certainly help you with that. One of the more unique parts of our collection is our appellate brief archive, and I'll be talking about that throughout the presentation today, so I won't spend too much time on that right now. In addition to the Minnesota specific resources, we do have treatises on most subjects. Major treatises are available for virtually every topic that could come up in a Minnesota court, plus those federal issues that tend to be common, including immigration, tax, and tribal law as well. And then we subscribe to a number of periodicals related to the law. One thing I want to note is we do keep the older versions of all Minnesota resources, so that includes the primary law and our secondary sources. So if you do need an older version of, for example, a jury instruction, that's something that we can help you with. So feel free to contact us if you're looking for any of that. All right, so let's dive into the free resources that are out there. We'll start with places to locate case law and briefs. So case law, there's a lot of different places that you can look. And of course, I have to start with our own opinions archive. This is the State Law Library website currently. There will be a handout that we'll post on our website after the presentation that has all of these links. So to access our opinions archive, you can click on the opinions option under quick links from the homepage. Now, this is a pretty basic search interface, but you're able to access opinions from the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals from May 1996 to the present. And this does include the precedential and non-precedential opinions, which until recently were called published and unpublished opinions. So we do have all of those options. You're able to search by keyword, and then you can also search by a citation. So if you have an appellate docket number, you can enter that. You can also use the citation here. We have been slowly adding the Northwest sites to our opinions and briefs in our archive. It's not comprehensive yet. We're steadily working on that, but you can certainly try and search. So you'll need the volume number, the reporter number, and then you will need the first page of the opinion. So finding a pin site in here is not going to necessarily yield the best results. But this is what the search looks like. So if you enter your search, you will then find a PDF of the opinion that you're looking for. So these are the slip opinions issued by the court, and you're able to download that and use that as you need. Our briefs archive is probably going to be of more interest to most of you because this is a really unique collection that we have. So our briefs archive is accessible either from that quick links box on the homepage, or you can use the tabs here above the search boxes to navigate between these different search options here. So the brief search is a little bit more rudimentary. It does include the keyword search, which is where you can enter in if you have a docket number, and then you can search by citation. So our briefs archive, the default is that it includes cases resulting in a published or precedential opinion starting around 2002. There are additional briefs in this archive, and that is because we have a briefs on demand service for lack of a better way to describe it. But essentially, if you're looking for a brief, if we're able to upload it pursuant to the rules of public access, we can include that in the brief and it will be searchable for you. So my recommendation for finding briefs is if you want to check our brief archive first to see if it's something that's already there, do that and then contact us if it's not there, and we may be able to add it to the archive. In addition to the briefs that we have here, we also have briefs on microfiche, and we can scan and upload those to this archive as well. We also have a collection of print briefs that goes back to, I think, 1865. So if you're looking for a brief in a published case, this is really the place to do that. So searching is pretty straightforward. You can enter keyword terms. Again, you can enter the citation if you have it. But if you're doing a case that involves a particular statute and you want to see how other attorneys have briefed this issue, you can enter the statute number into the keyword search, and then you'll get a list of results of briefs that are addressing this particular statute. So that can be really helpful when you're working on preparing a memorandum or a brief, to be able to see how other attorneys have addressed that to help you find additional sites to look at. Another place to find case law is Google Scholar. Google Scholar, this is going to work a lot like a Google search. There's just a couple of little quirks you have to keep in mind. So when you're doing a Google Scholar search, you want to make sure that you choose the case law option below the search bar. Otherwise, it will search academic scholarly articles, and there are a number of law review articles in there as well. But if you're looking for that case law, you do need to select that option under Google Scholar. You'll see below that if you're in Minnesota, typically it will pop up giving you the option to select the Minnesota courts. And then if you want to look at other additional courts, you can click on Select Courts right next to it. So in that box on the far right there is where you can choose Select Courts. And then you'll be able to see that there's a lot of different courts included in here. So all 50 states are represented in here, as well as the District of Columbia. And depending on the judicial structure in that state, there may be multiple levels of courts available. You can also see that federal courts are fairly comprehensively covered in here, including some more niche courts like the International Trade and Customs Courts. Coverage for Google Scholar for state court cases, it goes back to approximately 1950. On the federal side, all Supreme Court opinions are included in this database. For all of the other federal courts, coverage begins in roughly 1923. So it's a pretty wide range of cases that are available through this service. On this page, you can select as many or as few courts as you want to focus on. And once you've done that, you can then enter your search term. So this looks a lot like a Google search that you're used to doing. There are some options though underneath the case that appears that are a little bit different than what you'll see in a typical Google search. So we'll start with the cited by. Cited by and how cited are attempting to approximate kind of the equivalent of a key cite or shepherdizing on Westlaw or Lexis. It's not going to give you that same level of analysis, but you do have the information here to be able to make that determination of whether this case is still good law. So here's our cited by list. You've got about 60 cases that are citing to this case that I picked. And you can see here we have the bars over on the side next to the case name. That indicates the depth of discussion. So for 3 bars, that's the most thorough discussion, and then it will go down as the bars decrease. So then you can see a little snippet below that of where the case appears in the opinion. So you can decide if you want to look at that case that's citing to this. How cited is going to give you a little bit more of the analysis. So what they've done here is they've pulled the quotes that indicate how this case is being used. And then they've categorized them into categories. So you can see that you've got this first here, the decision of writ of mandamus based solely on a legal determination, standard of review is de novo. You've got the citation authority for that, and then 30 additional cases. So you can click on that and then see all of those different cases that have cited to that proposition. So again, this can help you figure out if something is still good law by using the how cited. It requires a little bit more legwork than relying on a key cite or a shepherdizing, but it's still possible to do that using Google Scholar for free. The other neat tool that is available through Google Scholar is the cite function. So if you click on that, it will prepare you a Blue Book citation. And in my experience, these are fairly accurate. So if you're working on a memorandum or a brief and need to prepare a list of your citations or just want to have someone create that for you, you can certainly rely on this button here. If the accuracy is super important, you may want to double check them, but like I said, in my experience, they've been fairly accurate. So that's just a nice little shortcut you can use. So the basic Google Scholar search is pretty straightforward. It's a simple search bar. There are some advanced options that you can use, and to be able to access those, you can use the three little bars up here. So when you click on that, you'll find the advanced search options. Now, first off, it does say find articles here at the top. This does work for the cases as well. So don't let that put you off of using this here, but you're able to enter exact phrases and also exclude terms if you want to do that. You can also look for run searches based on dates and additional fields like that. Again, if you're working on something where you want to search for a statute, you can enter that number in here, and you'll get those cases that are citing to that statute will come up that way as well. All right, so that's kind of the quick overview. There are, of course, many other places that you can find cases online. Those are the 2 most relevant to Minnesota. I think most of us have experienced that finding federal cases, and in particular finding U.S. Supreme Court cases is fairly easy. So we won't spend a lot of time on those other services that are available for that. Instead, we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about court records. So of course, we'll start with the Minnesota District Court. There are a few different ways to access these. For a long time, in-person access was really the only way to get access to district court documents. Couple of ways you can do that include the Minnesota Public Access Courthouse View. These terminals are available in every courthouse in Minnesota, plus at the State Law Library. They give the most comprehensive electronic case access, and they provide access to any publicly available case documents. There are some limitations to the online versions of this that are not present in the Courthouse View. So you may be able to find party information, including addresses, through Courthouse View. You may also be able to search for pending criminal cases, so cases that don't have a conviction entered yet, by a defendant's name. And of course, for older cases that predate e-filing and that haven't been digitized, you may be able to find paper files depending on the retention schedule for the district courts. It varies by case type, so we won't get into that, but it is available on the court's website. If you're looking for an older case, that retention schedule is really helpful to determine if court records might still exist. So of course, far more convenient is accessing court records online. Until recently, Minnesota Public Access Remote was the only way to do that, but it didn't provide access to court documents. MPA is still technically around, but I don't expect that it's getting a lot of use now that we have Minnesota Court Records Online, or MCRO. This was introduced last year in 2021 and provides access to case documents and registers of actions and other case information online remotely without having to be in a courthouse. So the scope of what's included in this is cases that are filed after July 1st, 2015. Although that's kind of a good guideline for thinking about things, there are some older documents that are in there if the case has had activity since then, especially if there was an appeal or if there's been some sort of post-decree litigation. There might be older documents in there that have been backscanned in. Of course, the MCRO is subject to the rules of public access, and there are certain document and case types that are not available in this, and we'll talk about those in a second. But you now have the option to search in a number of different ways and access those court records remotely, which has been really nice. It's much more convenient, and currently there is no cost to do that, so that's also an added plus. So if you haven't seen the homepage for MCRO, this is what it looks like. You'll notice that there are a lot of links to quick reference guides and handouts that can show you how to use this service. I think especially if you've used MPA, this is a lot easier to use and a lot more intuitive. So, but it's still good to have those quick reference guides to help you navigate this. You'll also notice that there are links to the user support and then links to the rules of public access. So if you want to look at those rules yourself, you can do that. Across the top, you've got lots of different options for how to search. The most common is probably going to be case search. This is the location that allows you to search by case number if you happen to have that, or by a person's name or business. So one nice feature of this, if you ever used MPA before, you knew you had to select either criminal traffic cases or the family civil cases. With MCRO, you can now search all of those at once. So you don't have to run multiple searches if you're trying to see if there are cases for a particular person or business on either side of those. You can also search by citation number and attorney information if that's something you're interested in. The same kind of search features of the sounds like and the wildcard features are also available in this. So these next slides are taken from the user guide here, and which just kind of gives you an idea of the information and how it's organized. MCRO does look a little bit different from Courthouse View and MPA in the way that the information is organized, but all of the same information is still there. So at the top of every case, you'll have the standard case information, the title, where it was filed, when it was filed, the judicial officer assigned, status, all those kinds of things. A nice feature of MCRO now is that you can actually jump to different sections using this jump to section option here at the bottom. So if you're only interested in when is the next hearing, or if there's a judgment due on the case, you can jump directly to that section without having to scroll through everything, which is really nice. The next section will be party information. Again, you'll be able to see information about the parties, including potentially birth dates for typically in criminal cases. And then you'll be able to see any of the attorneys. And if someone was previously represented but isn't anymore, that will also show up on here. The case events, I apologize, this is pretty blurry probably for most of you. The case events are now listed in reverse chronological order, so the most recent events are going to appear at the top. You can see off to the right if there is a view document option next to this, that means there is a PDF for you to download related to that event. The hearings section, again, is now separate from the case information, so it will show upcoming as well as previous hearings. If things have been rescheduled or if there was a result from the hearing, it will all be listed in this section as well. And then finally, there is a separate judgment search available through this. You'll notice that on the case information for the judgment, you can go straight to view the case details without having to run a separate search, which in MPA you usually had to start over and do a new search. So that's really nice. You can toggle between those. You'll have the same information about the case and the parties. And then below that, you'll have all of the details about the judgment. So there's a lot of great information and new features in MCRO, but there are some things that are no longer available. So the biggest category of these, I think, is documents filed by parties in family law cases. So you will not be able to see the motions and petitions that the parties have filed. What you will be able to see are documents that the court has issued. So orders, divorce decrees, those sorts of things that are generated by the court are going to be in there, just not anything created by the parties. Just like with MPA, you are not able to search for pending criminal cases when searching by a defendant's name. If you have the case number for a pending criminal case, you can find that through MCRO. You just have to have the case number. You can't just search by someone's name. Of course, non-public or confidential case types are not available in MCRO, and you won't be able to see party addresses. And then there are certain public case types that are not available in MCRO pursuant to the rules of public access. So these include some of the more sensitive case types like civil commitment, OFP and HRO cases, felony delinquency, and then child protection and termination of parental rights. Those are technically public cases, but they are not available remotely. So that's kind of the quick overview of the district court. Again, those help guides are really helpful if you have additional questions, and there is a support center available through the MCRO website. Switching gears to the appellate court, again, there are two tiers of access here. You have the remote view and the courthouse view. There's far less of a difference between what's available in the remote and courthouse view at the appellate level. Remote view, you're able to access documents with the exception of confidential documents, obviously, and then briefs are not available through this remotely. But you've got case documents from approximately mid-2013 to the present, court documents going back to approximately 2011, and then basic case information from about 2003 to the present. The main change with Courthouse View is that it also includes those appellate briefs. If you're not able to get to a courthouse to view a brief, you can, of course, contact us if it's not already in our briefs archive, and we can look into adding that. So here's what the appellate case management system, PMAX, looks like here. It's a little bit less sophisticated of a search here. If you have the case number, that's great. You can easily enter that. You can also search by case groups or case types. One thing to note, if you are searching for a case number, even if you enter the exact case number, if the case is already closed, and that includes if it's the day after an opinion was issued, you will need to uncheck the exclude closed archived box. Otherwise, it won't turn up. So even if you're still within your appeal period for a petition for further review, you would still need to uncheck that because the case will show up as closed. If you want to search for all cases for a person or a business, you can use the participant search over on the left-hand side. And that will bring up some fields where you can search by a person's name and see all cases that they might have been involved in. Another category of court records that I think a lot of people don't necessarily know about is the Judicial Branch Administrative File Archive. So this includes documents that are not court records in the way that we think of them of documents for an actual court case, but they're integral to the functioning of the court system. So committees related to the judicial branch, pilot projects like expedited litigation, cameras in courtrooms, those sorts of projects, amendments to the court rules, and then multi-district litigation. These are all included in this administrative file archive. There's 2 locations for this information for the 1970s to 2011. These are available through the Clerk of Appellate Court's website, through the Administrative File Archive. More recent documents are available through PMAX, so the service that we just looked at. You're able to find those there. So here's what the administrative file archive looks like. You can see you've got folders for each of the committees, or if it's multi-district litigation, you've got that, or the set of rules. And once you click into one of these folders, you'll have all of the different documents that are associated with it. So that might include orders to amend the rules. It might include testimony from a public comment period on changes to the rules. It might include reports and explanations from the committee or working group about proposed changes. And you'll probably also find appointment orders to see who is on this working committee. So all of that information is going to be in here. You can download it as a PDF. To find the more recent documents on PMAX, you can use the case group administrative files search, and this will bring up a list of all of these different administrative cases. So you'll see here you've got the different numbers for the various committees, and then for the more recent ones, you can see that there are some COVID orders in here as well. So this is where you can find all of those types of things. On the federal court side, of course, this is a little bit different. You can't access federal court records through the Minnesota state system since they are completely separate. The official location for federal court records is through PACER, which stands for Public Access to Court Electronic Records. You have the options to search by case number or by party name. One of the drawbacks is that there are some fees to run searches and view documents. And of course, if you're following legal news, you've probably seen that this has been up for quite a bit of debate recently. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But currently there are fees imposed for running searches and viewing documents. The database includes federal case dockets and documents that are not marked confidential. There is another option for finding federal court records as well, and that's called RECAP, which is PACER backwards. And it's a project of the Court Listener Project and the Free Law Initiative. And this is a crowdsourced database of PACER documents. So when people run PACER searches, there's a browser add-on that will pull those documents into RECAP. So the downside of RECAP is that it's not comprehensive. Not every case and every document is in there, but there are no fees to access it, and it does include some additional expanded search options. So keep both of these in mind if you're looking for federal court records. Here's the PACER homepage. You'll start with the search for a case. And then you can search by a specific court or search by the nationwide index. Within those, you can search by court number or by court file number and by party name. So if you know exactly what court you're looking for, you can choose the specific court. If you're not sure, you can use the nationwide index to help narrow things down. These are your options for searches. Again, you can find cases, find parties, and then there are options for finding bankruptcy. So this is what the case, advanced case search looks like. Again, you can narrow things down by the different court types, the date ranges, and then you'll have to include the case number and title to be able to search this way. If you're searching by a party, this is the party advanced search. So you do have to include first, last, and middle. If you're going to include the middle initial, you have to also have that last name. You can also include case information to help narrow this down and date ranges. So this is what the recap search looks like. You have a couple of options. You have this top search bar is just a basic, simple search. You can type in your search criteria in there and it will run a search. Below that, then you have the advanced search options. So you can add information about the court, the docket, the case type that you're interested in, party names, attorney names, so all these additional options to search by. Here's what a sample result would look like. You've got the case information at the top, and then there'll be a listing of the documents that might be available below that. Typically, if there's a page number listed next to it, you're able to actually download that document. You may be able to find information about filings, but if you see the little circle with a line through it, that may mean that a PDF is not available. So again, this can be kind of hit or miss, but it's certainly worth a look to see if the document you need has already been added to this archive. All right, so switching gears again, we'll talk now about finding statutes, rules, and ordinances. And we're of course going to start with the Minnesota Revisor of Statutes. I'm guessing everybody on this call has used this website before, so I'm not going to focus on the basic looking up a statute information here, but there are a lot of features on this website that I think a lot of people are not aware of and that can really simplify your research when you're trying to find information about Minnesota statutes. So I want to focus on those instead. First thing I want to point out is searching law by keyword. You probably noticed that there is a little simple search box underneath each publication type that is to search the law by keyword. But this advanced search option up here at the top, I think gives you a lot more power to search here. So you'll notice right away you can search by multiple different document sets. You can search the statutes, laws, and rules all at once if you want to. And if you scroll down further on this page, you can also include court rules and the Minnesota Constitution in this. So lots of different options for searching here. At the top, you can enter your keywords. If you're going to use an exact phrase search, you want to be sure to choose the exact phrase button. So for this example, we'll search the current Minnesota statutes for the phrase great bodily harm. When you get your results, they will be listed in numerical order, so based on the section number. Usually that's not going to be the most helpful for what kind of research you're trying to do, but you can change this to order by relevance. So if you're running a search for great bodily harm and the first thing that comes up is a section from the chapter on community health boards, that's probably not what you were looking for specifically. So you can choose the order by relevance option up in the top right-hand corner, and it will now sort them based on how often the phrase occurs. And now you'll see that our results are focused more heavily on the criminal code and on DWI and other traffic issues, which is probably more what most people are looking for if they're searching great bodily harm. To further narrow down your search, you can search by a particular chapter as well. So if you happen to know that the criminal code in Minnesota is chapter 609, and you only want to find instances where this appears in the criminal code, you can enter that chapter number. You can also do a chapter range. So if there is a section of the statutes that you know covers your topic, you can enter those in there as well. And that will reduce your results. So we had 53 before, we've now got 31, which helps narrow things down a little bit. One of the other great features of the Revisor's website is that they have an archive of the statutes, session laws, and rules. So the archive includes previous versions of the statutes. So if you're looking for what the law might have said in 2004, 2005, or even all the way back to 1851, which is the first year that the Minnesota territorial statutes were published, all of those are available on the Revisor's website here. And again, the range is going to differ depending on the type of document and when those started being published, but you have this as well for the administrative rules and the session laws. You'll notice there's a funny little page break here between 1996 and 1997. The reason for that is in 1997, these were added as web pages, so each individual section has its own website. For 1996 and prior, the Revisor's Office received a grant to digitize the older statutes, so they are scanned as PDFs of each chapter. So the PDFs are still searchable, so you should have no problem locating the section that you're interested in, but just be aware that you will find things as a chapter rather than as individual sections for those older statutes. Another good feature here is the unconstitutional statutes table. So if you're working on a case and you're wondering whether the statute that is involved or the statute that you've come across has been found unconstitutional or has been preempted by a federal case, you can find that here in this table. So it will include the statute citation. Again, in some cases it gets as granular as the clause and subdivision level. And then you will find out whether it was found federally preemptive or found procedurally or substantively unconstitutional. They've also included case references for this. So the case where this was decided will be shown here in the reference section. And if it is available online, the case will be linked to, so you can actually read the opinion and see what the court had to say about this particular statute. So that's really helpful if you're working on something where you think that the statute might be invalid or parts of it might be invalid and you want to double check that. There's another helpful table on here, and that's the statutes changed table, which you can get to under the Minnesota session laws. What this does, it will default to show you every single statute that was changed in the most recent legislative session. So this table will show you the previous text, if there was any. It will show you if the statute was new, if it was repealed, if it was amended, if it was renumbered. You'll be able to see that in the action column. And then you'll be able to see the link to the session law chapter where the change was made. Again, this table breaks things down to the subdivision level as well, which can be really helpful. The other thing you can do with this is you can trace the activity on a particular statute. So you can enter in a statute number that you're interested in and then choose the legislative sessions you want to see. So it goes back to 1994 and you're able to see all of the different changes that have been made throughout that time. So this is the history for 136A.126, and you'll see all of the different locations where this was amended and added to throughout time. This is obviously really helpful if you're doing legislative history research, which we won't get into in detail here because that's an entirely different hour-long CLE. But just note that this exists and can help you figure out how a statute has changed over time. The other feature that is really helpful on here, and I think often gets overlooked, is the statutes by topic index. So this is just like a print index that you might see in a treatise or in the print versions of the statutes. It's arranged by topic alphabetically. You can enter a search term or browse by the letter. One thing I want to be sure to point out, because even if you've used the index before, you may not have noticed this little select index button up here at the top. That will bring you to the different indexes that are available. So you can search different years of the statutes. You can also search the court rules and the rules, and then there are a few combined ones as well, where you can search statutes, court rules, and administrative rules all in one place. So that's super convenient if you're working in an area that you know may be covered by all of those different publications. You can search them all in one place. So if you've never used the index before, here's kind of a screenshot of what it looks like. You've got your listing of your topics, and then when you click into one of these, it's further broken down into subtopics, and you'll have a link to, in some instances, it may link to a cross-reference to a different index topic, or it will just link directly to the statutes where this topic is discussed. So if you're not sure if there's a Minnesota statute that covers your particular topic, this is a really great place to come to get straight to the most relevant statutes to your issue. On the federal side, we have a website called GovInfo. So GovInfo includes government publications, including information about bills, statutes, and other congressional and legislative materials. You'll also find budget and executive agency and executive branch materials on here. There are a limited number of judicial publications as well as regulatory materials like CFR sections and things like that. And then there's quite a bit of historical content on here as well. So if you're looking for information related to the federal government, this is the first place you should go. Here's the home page, what it looks like. You have a basic search as your default option. There's also an advanced search, and then if you have a citation that you just want to look up, you choose the collection here, so you can see you have options for the Code of Federal Regulations, statutes, US Code, and other sets of documents here. You can fill in the different forms here. There's something a little bit quirky. When you leave this on most recent and search for a section of the United States Code, this actually has all of the historical versions that are available online included in here. So you can see that running a search for 8 USC 1151 will bring up all of the different editions, including the most recent one. So just be aware of that. If you're running a search for most recent and you get a ton of results, that's what it's doing. It's pulling all of the editions that may be available online. If there's a particular year you want to look at, so if you want to see the most recent one, in this case, the 2020, you can click on the name of the statute or click on the details button, and that will get you to the content information. So this page looks a little bit information dense and overwhelming at first. On the left-hand side is where you can actually read the text of the statute. So you can download it as a PDF, or the text will bring it up as a web page. You've then also got your summary information here. So it will show you all the source credits, all of the public laws that have contributed to amending this statute. And the document in context here will show you the table of contents for the United States Code, so you can see the other sections that are around it. Now, depending on the type of content you're looking at, this will look very similar, but you may have different options. So this is an example of a congressional bill here. You'll see that, again, we have the public and private law references. We also have US Code references to where this bill was eventually enacted within the US Code. On the left-hand side, you still have the download information, and then you have an option for related documents. So the related documents here will give you a little bit of information about the sponsor and committee information. And then you've got different categories of information below that. So if you're doing a legislative history, for example, of a federal bill, you'll find the congressional committee and bill reports and bill history information all in this related documents tab. You'll also find links to all of the US Code sections and the public and private laws that have led to this contributed to the bill and the US Code sections, and you can get to those all directly from there. So when we expand these categories, again, this is kind of what the congressional committee prints will look like, the congressional reports. You can click into those and then read those documents related to this legislation. If you want to see everything that's included in GovInfo, choose the Browse Documents by Alphabetical Order option, and this will just bring you to an alphabetical list of all the different document collections. So this screenshot kind of gives you an idea of the variety of information that's in here. You've, of course, got your House Journal, your House Rules Manual, congressional hearings. You've got a little bit of civics information of how our laws are made, and then you have things related to particular topics. So you've got historical government publications from World War II, you've got the JFK assassination records, impeachment publications. So all of that kind of stuff is available in GovInfo. They're adding new stuff all the time, and there is a wealth of information here related to the federal government. So if that's something that you're researching, again, this should be your first stop. Tribal law issues are obviously very common in Minnesota, given that we have a number of tribes within our state's borders as well. And tribal law interacts quite a bit with state law. We've had previous CLEs on that as well. The connection and the jurisdictional issues there can be quite interesting. So the National Indian Law Library is a great place to go if you have one of those issues and need to learn more about tribal law interaction with the federal government and with state governments, as well as researching tribal codes and laws. So the two features on this website that I want to highlight quickly are the Tribal Law Gateway and the research guides. Your Tribal Law Gateway is going to be your tribal law materials organized by tribes. So the tribes will need to opt in to participating in this National Indian Law Library, and you can see that just from this quick list that quite a few of them have, including ones that are in various degrees of recognition by the states. If you've ever tried to research tribal law, you'll know that it can be very hit or miss to find tribal codes, tribal court opinions, and things like that. So this has everything condensed into one place and is really helpful. There are Minnesota tribal materials included in this. So certainly if you do find yourself working on an issue that involves tribal law, this is a great place to start to find those codes and court rules and opinions. For more general research about particularly the interaction between tribal law, federal law, and state law, the Indian Law Research Guides are a great place to start. You can see all the different categories that are covered here. They have a great guide on jurisdiction, which is obviously one of those questions that can be a little bit tricky. And then you've got guides on other things that touch on state law in particular, like the Indian Child Welfare Act, water rights, environmental issues, all of that you can further research on these research guides. Ordinances, of course, come up in a variety of different cases and differ widely between different cities and counties throughout the state. If you want to research ordinances, we have compiled a list of the cities in Minnesota that have provided these online. So under from our homepage, you can go under research links and click on ordinances. And then you'll get an alphabetical list here. This includes all of the cities, townships, counties that we are aware of that make their ordinances available online. So it's probably not a comprehensive list. As you know, some of the smaller municipalities probably don't include, don't always have a website where this information is available, but we've tried to include everything that we are aware of. So if you want to come here and go directly to the ordinances for a particular municipality, that you can certainly do that from here. The last category of resources that I want to talk about, we've kind of generally called articles. And so this, of course, includes some periodical materials, but it also includes just general sources for legal information online, legal information that isn't a primary source like a case or a statute, but includes helpful descriptions of the law, helpful summaries, practice tips, those sorts of things. So we'll start with our legal articles database, which has been called the Legal Periodicals Index previously. It used to be hosted on an external site. It's now on our website. Again, you can access this from these tabs up at the top or from that quick links box on our home screen. The general category of information that's in here is Minnesota legal periodicals. So you can click on the About content to see the specific publications that are included, but generally it's going to be things like bar journals. So Bench and Bar of Minnesota, Minnesota Lawyer, Hennepin Lawyer, the Ramsey County Bar Association newsletters, Minnesota Women Lawyers, some of the law reviews and journals from around the state, and then any other trade publications. So Minnesota Trial Lawyers Association, Minnesota Defense, all of those would be included in here. So that about content will show the publication name and the date range that's included here. It typically goes back to, I think, roughly 1983 or 1984. You've got the option to keyword search. You can search by an author name or by a subject. You can narrow by date as well. And here's what your sample search results might look like. You'll notice here you've got the authors and the subjects. These have been indexed by our cataloger to have these different categories here. And then you'll notice that the title might appear underlined in some cases, and it might not. For the ones that appear underlined, that means there is we've provided a link to where this is available online. If there is not an underline on that, it doesn't mean you can't access it. It just means that you'll have to contact us to get a copy of the print version. Everything that's included in this archive, we do have access to. So if you're looking for something, for example, the second arrow here is indicating Minnesota Journal of Law and Politics from 1995. That's not available online, but we do have a print copy that we can get you a copy of if you need to see that article. Another free place to search for full text law reviews and journals is the ABA and Law Technology Today search. So this is available at the through Law Technology Today, and then you can enter your search terms here. The search is powered by Google, so it works a lot like a general Google search. So for example, I run a basic search for Section 1983 claims, and then you'll see all of the different open source articles that are available as full text. So if you're researching something and need access to law review articles, this is another great place to look for those. So moving on to the kind of legal information side of things away from periodicals, our legal topics pages are good sources of getting started information. Our legal topics pages, we've got about 300 different topics listed on this page, and each one of these has resources related to the particular topic, including statutes, government pages, other resources related to this. Now, many of these are organized and created for members of the public, people who don't necessarily have a legal background, but I still want to mention them to attorneys because I think we have several that are still helpful because they do gather the statutes that are related to this, links to government publications, links to titles that we have in our collection on the topic, and links to forms that are out there. So if you are getting started in an area of law that you're maybe not quite as familiar with, this can be a good place to get started before you move into more advanced research. So using our agricultural law guide as an example, this is kind of what it looks like. You'll see that we've got general resources related to government issues. We've got our statutes and agency rules. If you drill down into a secondary topic, so for example here livestock, you'll see that we've got resources from the Department of Agriculture and then books within our collection as well that cover this topic. So again, this is not going to necessarily get you all the way there for what you need for your research on a new area, but it's a great starting point. One of the resources that we refer to a lot on these guides is the Minnesota House Research Department. This is a nonpartisan office that's part of the legislative branch, and they provide summaries of key issues for legislators. But they've made the reports available to everyone, and they're really helpful for providing a good overview of different areas of the law. So you can kind of see some of the subjects that are listed here. If you click into one, like for example, criminal justice, you'll see the different areas that are covered. They've got some of these longer publications. So for example, the crime victim laws is a 39-page publication that summarizes the law in this area. They've also got some what they call short subjects, which are quick 1 or 2 page overviews. They're written in a question and answer format. They're meant to get you up to speed quickly on an area of law. And they do include those citations to statutes or cases that are relevant. So again, these are a really good place to start your research. on a new area of law. They're also really good to check as laws have changed. They'll typically do an update for when there's been a large scale change in one of the laws. So to get up to speed on that, those can be really helpful as well. Along the same lines, the Legislative Reference Library is another excellent resource. This is another nonpartisan office of the legislature. They do serve the public as well. And they've got a number of helpful resources on their website, including their subject guides and their mandated reports database. So their subject guides, again, are geared towards kind of some of those most visible issues that are coming up in the legislature. If you're doing legal and policy research together, this is going to be a good resource for you. Each of their guides here has compiled any books and reports they have in their collection, articles, internet resources, and kind of provides that nice overview of everything that you need to know on the topic. In addition, their mandated reports database, oftentimes the legislature will direct an agency or other governmental entity to prepare a report on something, and those can provide a lot of great information as well. So if you want to find one of those, you can search the mandated reports database. There's lots of different ways to search here if you happen to have a title or if you're just interested in the work of a particular council or agency, you can search that and you'll get all of the information about the mandate information here. If you click on the details option for one of these, that's where you'll get the actual PDF report link, and then you can read through that. Another source of information is the Attorney General's website. There's plenty of information about consumer law in here, so that's a great resource for those types of issues. Under the topics is where you'll find information. Again, this is typically written for the public, but it's still really helpful information. They've put together these booklets that cover different aspects of the law. They do include citations to cases and statutes. It's all linked. And they often have attorney general forms that you can use and links to other resources. So these are, again, another helpful resource for when you're getting started. The other handy thing is that these booklets are available in print and online. So if you're working with a potential client and you're not able to represent them but want to give them something, you can direct them to these handbooks and fact sheets and they can get a free copy if they don't want to look at it online. In addition, the Attorney General's website does have an online archive of Attorney General opinions. So these are issued to typically government, municipal bodies regarding some aspect of the law. 1993 to current is available online. There are ways to access the older ones as well, including through the State Law Library. We do have a collection of published opinions, so if you're looking for those, feel free to contact us and we can help you find those. Another great resource for basic legal information is Law Help MN. And this page is probably not going to be especially useful for you as a lawyer to do research, but there are some features on it that can help you assist your clients or potential clients that you're not able to necessarily take on representation. So a couple things I'll point out right away. At the top here, this is a resource you can use to help potential clients or your clients find a location to attend a virtual court hearing. Obviously, not everybody has a reliable internet connection or the equipment or the space at home to be able to fully attend a court hearing. So if you are working with somebody who needs help finding a place to go that's quiet and has a reliable internet connection, this legal kiosk directory can help you find a place that they can go to a hearing and be able to fully participate. For clients that you're working with that may have limited English proficiency, this website is also available in Spanish, Hmong, and Somali, which can be helpful to explain legal concepts to them in a language that's more familiar. The Self-Help Library provides short little fact sheets that cover issues that come up most commonly for Minnesotans. So this includes things like family law, housing, employment issues, benefits, those sorts of issues. Each category is further broken down into additional categories. So the benefits in healthcare here, you've got the different types of assistance. And within that, you'll have short fact sheets, um, as well as links to external websites that may be able to provide some assistance, such as 211 or the Department of Human Services. There may be videos available. So for people who process information in different ways, this can be really helpful. Each of these fact sheets can be really useful as well. They're written in the question and answer style. And then they'll also usually have associated forms and other resources, so you can help somebody with this type of case. So again, this is a great place to refer people to if they want to learn more on their own, or if you're not able to take them on as a client. I know we're running out of time here. I've got a couple more things to mention, and then I will be happy to hang around for questions. Few other sources. So everything that we've talked about so far for these articles is pretty much Minnesota specific. There are some additional resources for general legal information online. Of course, the Cornell Legal Information Institute has an excellent WEX encyclopedia that covers a variety of legal concepts. There are also NOLO and FindLaw, which are short articles on legal topics, again, written for the general public. And then FindLaw has a Spanish language version called Abogado, and those are all really helpful. Again, for short summaries of the law, can be helpful to send to clients so they can try and understand a particular issue, or to refer people to if you're not able to take them on as a representative for representation. That was a lot of information very quickly. I know I was talking very quickly as well. If you have questions about this presentation, I'm happy to take those now. You can also contact me. My information is on the slide here. If you have research questions or want help accessing any of our resources, please feel free to contact us at askalibrarian@courts.state.mn.us. You can also find a form to contact us on our website. And I will stop talking now and pause for questions. And I'll add the CLE information again into the chat. All right, I'm not seeing any questions here, so I'm going to go ahead